For Rory, with a win this week, he would finish the season as the DP World Tour's top player for a sixth time. And we learned he's had a busy few weeks preparing to finish strong as he met with the media earlier today.
Yeah, so I sort of committed after the Dunhill that I wasn't going to watch my ball flight for 3 weeks. So locked myself indoors in just in like a swing studio for 3 weeks and just hit balls into a blank screen or a net. And just focused on my swing, focused on the movement of my swing, focused on some of my body patterns, I guess, and just had a live feed on a TV in front of me of where the club was, and sort of just trying to get the reps in of making the motion that I want to make. And then over the past 10 days now, so from last Monday, started to see the ball flight and get a bit more comfortable with what the ball was doing in the air, but still trying to, focus on, the move that I want to make. So, but I think those 3 weeks in the sim have been important. I haven't had time to sort of do that over the past 18 months. So I thought it was important to get in there and do that. And for me, that's the only way that I'm going to make a swing change, because if I just hit balls in the range, I'm just going to react to whatever ball flight I've just seen. So to not see the ball flight for a while, I think has been really important to try to implement some of those little changes. And it's definitely something that I'll continue to do after these 2 weeks into December and going into the new year as well. Obviously,
you've tied Seve, and to pass him would be great. Well, what keeps you so interested in the race to Dubai? What is it? Is it that the legacy of that whole thing of getting to beat Monty, or? Not necessarily that, even though that would be nice. I pride myself, I'm a European player. I would like to go down as the most successful European of all time. Obviously, race to Dubai wins would count to that, but also major championships, and hopefully I've got a few more Ryder Cups ahead of me as well. So that's something that I would like to, I think that's a goal that is quite attainable over the next 10 years. And, I'm very proud to be from Europe and have sort of, played on this tour and played on this tour consistently. And, it's something that, I'm very proud of. And I just think of the greats of European golf that I grew up watching, whether it was Faldo or Woosie or Langer or, the sort of the really, the heyday of the European Tour in the 90s, I guess. And yeah, that's, that was, I remember when I got not even my European Tour card, I remember when I got my first money clip just as I signed up to be a member, and it was a really proud moment for me. So it's something that I've always been proud of and something I want to continue to do. Rory, I'm not sure if you've seen, but there's been a few reports of done deals and negotiations being successful and reaching the conclusion. Can you shed any light on that?
It's the first that I've heard of it. I know Jay was in Saudi Arabia last week at the FII and was having some meetings, but no, I think I would have heard if there was. So I know there's I know he's briefing the transaction committee tonight. So maybe some news comes out of that. But as far as I'm aware, I haven't heard a thing.
Would you be surprised if it was that? Because there seems so many loose ends.
Yeah, I would. But then obviously, given today's news with what's happened in America, I think that clears the way a little bit. So we'll see.
There's probably bigger things at play with that result, more important things. But if the DOJ was suddenly more amenable, that would be a big moment, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be. It would be a huge moment.
Okay, well, once again, a pretty open press conference by Rory McIlroy there, not just about his swing changes, but also the state of the game. And he had some kind of quite bold shouts to make now with the new president that we have.
Yeah, I mean, that was a reminder that Rory doesn't always have to answer the question that he's asked, particularly if it's going to be construed in some cases as some kind of commentary on what was a pretty polarizing election. It's very possible that the DOJ may take a more flexible approach to any proposed deal between the PGA Tour and the Saudis, but it's a valid question as to whether or not that influence is actually welcome at this point. And surely there are bigger priorities in the United States than ensuring that more money actually goes into the pockets of professional golfers. You'd like to think the Department of Justice has something else that might be higher on the priority list in there. But to me, it's just an example of when Rory ought to sort of avoid a subject. As much as we in the media love to actually hear somebody answer honest questions, with the perception that exists of professional golfers these days, I don't think it adds to it to immediately jump off an election result with the angle of how can this possibly put more money in our pockets. And kind of that's the sour taste that's left whenever golfers start getting into the idea of what the election could possibly mean for a deal between the Saudis and the PGA Tour.
Yeah, he said obviously Trump has got a great relationship with Saudi Arabia. He's a lover of golf, so maybe, he said, who knows? I think that's the question. Nobody really knows, though, do they?
No, they certainly don't, but we're going to find out if Rex Hoggard knows a little bit more than some of us. Rex joins us now to weigh in on this issue. Rex,
there he is.
I'm curious, do you think this is an example of where Rory might have been better off just saying, you know what, that's really got nothing to do with me, the election, we'll see how it goes, instead of implying, well, of course Trump has a good relationship with the Saudis. It's not necessarily a positive reflection on either side of that as well. Why would he choose to kind of weigh in on this kind of stuff?
I think, of course, he would have been better off just sidestepping the question. I think you see athletes in other sports who do it much better than Rory does, but that's not his nature. You know that better than I do. You've covered him for a long time. He likes to be honest. He likes to be forthright, and he has ideas on a wide range of subjects. You just pointed out he covered a lot of ground in that interview that we just listened to, all the way from his swing to the presidential election. I would agree with you wholeheartedly with the idea that I would think the new president has a lot more on his plate than trying to bring professional golf back together, and certainly this probably isn't the time to talk about that. But in that instance, I think Rory did what Rory does best, and that's answer questions.
Yeah, just to go back on the more basic golf stuff, Rex, he mentioned that the tinkering that he's been doing with his swing is to make it more efficient so it doesn't break down under pressure in key moments. We've obviously seen a little bit of that this season, especially you think back to the US Open. But again, sort of giving this information and telling the world about the changes that he's made and how hard he's been working, does that make him a little bit more vulnerable to speculation towards the end of the season?
I think so. And look, again, this goes to Rory's honesty. I don't know that I've ever asked him a question that he's just flat out refused to answer. In this particular case, I was pretty surprised by his answer. It's not that the fact that he's looking for some sort of answer with his golf swing. He always does that. That's in his DNA. I understand that. But you look at his strokes gained off the tee numbers, he's fourth. That's for this season. That's status quo for him going back a long time. Now, his iron game is a little bit off statistically to where it's been in recent years, but I don't see the problem in the full swing. I see the problem in his putting. In specific, just go to what's happened the last few weeks. He loses the BMW PGA in a playoff. Granted, to Billy Horschel, who made it eagle in a playoff, that's kind of hard to beat. But that kind of speaks to the pressure that you're under, and you need to be able to convert those putts when you're in that situation. He loses the Irish Open by a stroke. Again, you're in that situation, you've given yourself a chance to win, and you don't get it done. I imagine we're not having this conversation if he makes, and I did the math on this, exactly 75 inches of putts over his final 3 holes at Pinehurst. I'm sure that we're having a much different conversation if he were to actually have won that U.S. Open. And the reason that he didn't win, you could probably sit and talk about his driving, his iron game, his short game, everything else, but it was those putts that cost him that title.
Rex, we heard Rory there mention a report in a British tabloid newspaper, The Sun, which suggested a deal has been done between the Saudis and the PGA Tour and that Rory and Tiger actually negotiated the deal. And pretty much it was what has been known in the background for months, recycled in a breathless manner to imply that there's something new when there wasn't. But it gets recycled and it gets picked up, and even nominally credible members of the media are saying, I wonder if this is true. I guess we'll find out. And you know, has golf media kind of got another stain on it after this past week? Because we're about to enter the annual period now where the LIV rumours start again, none of which are ever actually backed up by any facts, but they're recycled by people who are desperate to appear informed.
I think you and I are going to look at this the same way. First, you're going to look at the writer who broke that story, and we both know the writer who broke that story and have respect for him. I think the other half of it is how would that writer know this information, and who gains from this information being out? So my initial thought was someone is floating a trial balloon. Someone wants to get this information out there and see what the reaction is from the public. To answer your question, I don't know if it's necessarily golf media or just media in general that, yes, you see too many stories that don't have sources to them. You see too many stories with just outright speculation, obvious outright speculation. You see too many stories with outright mistakes, like this story had in it. And it speaks to what's going on right now in golf. You and I both know how close this circle is when it comes to these negotiations. So every time I see something in a headline or in a story, I'm always a little dubious because there's only a handful of people in the world that know exactly what's going on, and I doubt any of them want to be willing to talk to reporters right now about it.
And Rex, just from a bird's eye view right now, just for our viewers at home, with everything going on, of course, with the partnership between PGA Tour and the PIF and the PAC memo and the changes that could be coming to the PGA Tour, what matters to the fans right now? What matters to the viewers? Where should their focus be that actually maybe they can look forward to something and be excited about something in this game right now?
I always go back to the Monday after that U.S. Open I just referred to, and the idea that I went to the Travelers Championship, but the most popular player, not the best player, I'm not making that argument, but the most popular player on the planet in that moment was at a live event in West Virginia. So one side, you have the PGA Tour playing a signature event at the Travelers Championship. They put up a lot of money to do this, but the most popular player is at another event. I think what the fans want to see is the best players together more often. I don't know if it's 100-player fields. I don't know if it's 72-player fields. I think that is something the Tour needs to figure out. But if you want to cut it down to the most basic idea here, it's the top players, Rory McIlroy, Bryson DeChambeau, Scotty Scheffler, Xander Schauffele, all of these players going head-to-head at classic venues more often. And I think we don't have that right now, and we're not going to have that until the two sides come back together again.